You just have to jump. I think I get to jump in, and we've been predicting this. We've been waiting for it, and we do have some breaking news from the Decision Desk. NBC News can now project that Donald Trump has won the state of Wisconsin, which means he is the winner of this race.
So I've decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation.
Campaign is already rolling full speed ahead. She's already securing endorsements from the Democratic Party's most prominent leaders.
This was not the end. It was only the beginning of our fight to rescue the American dream. And it's a word you don't use, 2 words. I don't want to be Joe. It's 2 words, American dream.
Hi, I'm EJ Kovacs Morgan. I'm currently taking poli-sci, and this is my election reflection assessment, recapping the 2024 presidential election. So let's get into this because it's a nail biter. A lot happened, a lot led up to it. So let's get right into it in a section I like to call the results, because let's start from the end and then work our way back to the beginning. So here are the results. Now, the results of the 2024 election were a Republican's favorite dream and a Democrat's nightmare, with the Republicans absolutely sweeping. The Republicans won not only the presidency, but also the House majority and a Senate majority. Donald Trump won with about 312 Electoral College votes, compared to Harris's 226 Electoral College votes. Now, Donald Trump won 77,234,776 votes, and Harris got 74,938,494 votes. So it was still pretty close, with Donald Trump getting about 49.9% of the popular vote, and Harris getting 48.4% of the popular vote. Now, this is all statistics got from Associated Press, and the date today is December 5th, so they are pretty final. There's 100 seats in the Senate, so you need about a 51-seat majority in order for the party to rule the Senate. Republicans got 53 seats in the Senate, and Democrats got 47. Moving on to the House, you need at least 218 seats in order to have a House majority, of which the Republicans got 220 seats compared to the Democrats' 215 seats. So the Republicans absolutely won, and we can predict seeing a lot of right-leaning, agenda-filling legislation definitely coming out of this presidency, House majority, and Senate majority. That is until the next 2 years, when there's a re-election for the House, and who knows what will happen then. But as of right now, the Republicans absolutely are at the top of the monarchy, ruling over all of it. A little timeline of the election and leading up to it, just some important events I feel I should point out is, originally, the candidate for Democrats was the incumbent president, Joe Biden, meaning he is currently president and he is running for re-election. June 27th rolls around, one of the earliest debates between presidential candidates, the Republican candidate being Donald Trump, who's up for re-election. June 27th happens, which gives birth to an interesting perspective, because it doesn't really help Joe Biden at this debate, nor does it help Trump. But it wasn't a repeat of the 2020 election debate.
You're a senator. I'm not going to answer the question.
Why would you answer that question?
The question is, the question is,
justice, radical left.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen, who is on your list?
Which was very, but still, it showed struggles for both sides of the parties. So it didn't leave both of them looking very well, although it served Trump more so than it served Biden. So that's June 27th. Now, going further, there's been a lot of unrest in the Democratic Party about Joe Biden being the candidate. So on July 3rd, major Democrat donors are shouting out, "We don't want Biden as our candidate anymore. Biden, please drop out. We need to reconvene. Think of party alternatives." So it's not looking good for the guy at all. So there's back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and then all of a sudden people start calling for Joe Biden to drop out of the race. Now, moving on, Donald Trump has an assassination attempt on him on July 13th. So now there's a lot more support kind of going to Donald Trump. Mainly out of, there's a lot of public outcry over how horrible it is, which definitely serves his image a bit, paints him more human. I also think it dragged him down a bit. So for a while, he was definitely more grounded when it came to different things. Now, again, it's not looking good for Biden because now these people are going full on Trump. And so there's not a lot you can do with Joe Biden versus Trump. Now then, Joe Biden starts having press conferences and mixing up names, mixing up titles, which again is not going well for his image. On July 21st, Biden drops out of the 2024 president election race. Now, this is July. The election is in November. So this causes a scramble. Everyone's like, what are we going to do? Because this guy just dropped out. We need to find a new candidate. I'm personally in the corner for Michelle Obama. Michelle Obama was my candidate pick. I was on Instagram. I was talking about how I wanted Michelle Obama up there. Now, Donald Trump endorses Kamala Harris. Donald Trump did not endorse Kamala Harris. Joe Biden endorsed Kamala Harris. Just pretend I said Joe Biden, please. Boom. Harris is in the race. All right. Now, Harris is in the race. So starts the rat race to the finish line. So we're pumping this out. The election is in not 4 months. 4 months. So she's got to book it. And not only that, July 21st. So it's like the end. Really, it's like 3 months and 3/4. Like, this girl has no time at all. At all. So, I've pulled up my research here, and we're going to get into the section I like to call the demographics. So, regarding the election and what I think personally happened, because when I first hear about the results, now, I knew it was going to be a close race, but I didn't know he would win by that margin. So, I was a bit taken out of left field, but looking at the graphs, it almost makes sense. Now, Harris had about 3 months and a half to prepare for this. So she didn't get the time to individually cater to each amount of people potentially voting for her, especially in those swing states. Now I'm talking about rural. So we're going to pull up some graphs right here. Donald Trump, out of 100% of his voters, the most popular ages with him were 45 to 64, which made up about 34% of his vote, and 65 and up. So what that tells me is it's already people moving more towards retirement kind of age. So it's already people who have made money. So according to the Pew Research Center, one of the most important topics for Trump supporters were actually the economy. So my mind here is it's people reaching retirement age. So it's these people who have already made their money and they're worried about keeping it and holding on to it. Now, obviously, in this age, as inflation rates are going up, although recently they have been kind of trailing back down, it makes a lot of sense that these frustrated voters are seeing their prices go up. So a large part of Trump's vote came from those people, and my guess is they are very much economy focused. Now, Harris won with the age vote, be it with 18 to 29-year-olds and 30 to 44-year-olds. So we're talking younger age, newer generation. So with Harris supporters, healthcare, according to Pew Research Institute, was one of the more important things. So already that tells me it's more, I don't want to say healthcare is like a social issue, because it shouldn't be a social issue. But what that tells me is Harris supporters are already thinking of the world around them. It's less of holding on to what they got and more of sharing it and divvying it up, which, you know, to each their own. I completely understand the other side. Now, so what that tells me is it's a very young demographic. Now, there are not a lot of young people in the United States. So, already I feel like there is a bit of isolationism happening. If we go back to the Associated Press graphics, we can definitely see that regarding with race demographics, 84% of Trump voters were white. The location he won was rural. So, we have these whites, middle to elderly aged rural voters. So again, that is already telling me a majority of his votes, I think, are very economy centered. I think by focusing on economy and holding on to money, it doesn't leave a lot of room to isolate a lot of people. I think what happened was Harris most definitely did her best in the 3 months she got. But it wasn't enough time to appeal to most voters. Another interesting graphic was the level of education among Trump and Harris voters. Now, Trump's people with education was high school degree or less, or some college. So again, these people who go, you know, to trade school or immediately start entering the workforce right after college are these people who make up Trump, which is a very large margin of Americans compared to Harris, whose a large amount of supporters held college degrees and post-secondary degrees. Now, this says a lot about Harris and Trump policies and what people with educated, more wider mindsets think about their policies, but that doesn't guarantee a win for Harris. In fact, by appealing to the masses of America, which are a large majority white, a large majority uneducated, and a very large majority living in rural areas, not in cities, not in suburbia, Trump encompasses a lot of America, which most likely made him appeal to those people. Alright, let's talk about what we can expect from a Trump presidency, especially with policies. First off, on economics. Trump is entering in office with the guarantee that inflation will disappear completely. Now, one of the biggest and more publicized methods he's mentioned has been imposing tariffs on foreign goods. However, economists very much disagree with it, as we saw during the Great Depression era. Placing tariffs on foreign goods does not actually work to stimulate the U.S. economy. Instead, it ends up on consumers eventually having to pay for those tariffs. Because if we rely on foreign goods and we're taxing those goods, we're going to be the ones paying for those higher prices because those companies are going to need the foreign goods, as per the Ferris Bueller's Day Off scene.
A tariff bill, the Hawley-Smoot Tariff Act, which anyone raised or lowered, raised tariffs in an effort to collect more revenue for the federal government. Did it work? Anyone? Anyone know the effects? It did not work, and the United States sank deeper into the Great.
So, it's going to be a very interesting way he goes about the economic plan. Now, that being said, that also ties into Trump's foreign policy program. More specifically, he has mentioned taking U.S. support out of the war in Ukraine and working to find an end to it. Now, with China more specifically, by placing tariffs on foreign goods, most of which are coming in from China, we can only imagine that could worsen relationships or strengthen the United States as a global force. So it'll be definitely interesting to see how his foreign policy and economic policy tie in together on this specifically. Now, moving on to more social policy regarding climate change, he has threatened multiple times to pull out of the Paris Climate Agreement, which is one of the largest agreements made together by nations all over the world to very actively try and cut carbon emissions. And by doing this, Trump doing this as one of his first moves in office, it would take a year to process, and then Trump would have 3 years to create his own policies and his own restrictions. So, that being said, if he were to pull out of the Paris Climate Agreement, he would be able to do more oil drilling and fracking on U.S. federal land as well as international waters. So, that could also work to stimulate the U.S. economy after tariffs are put in place. So they kind of all connect almost, but the way things are pointing, it looks like things are about to get a lot more worse until they get better. So, it can go either way with his policies. Anyways, that's my election reflection and my thoughts on the recent results and future coming towards us. So have a great night, day, or morning, whenever time you're watching this. Thank you.